speaking, and welcome to Law Talk, the show that brings the Constitution, the events of the day, and an analysis through the law to you each month. My name is James Barrett, and along with Mark Malachowski, we bring interesting subjects to you. Mark, what do we have tonight?
Well, first of all, we're going to talk about horse rider DUI.
Wait a minute. Are you talking about an equestrian riding under the influence of alcohol?
That's right. Okay, so we got that, and then we have fractional voting, which is kind of like Donald in mathematics land for picking.
It sounds like bitcoins in voting.
Yeah, it's very close to that. And then you have, finally, we're going to talk about Harvard got in a fight with the Asians over admission criteria.
Admission requirements or discrimination?
Yeah, discrimination.
Okay, why don't we start first with the drunken horseman. Tell us all about it, Mark.
Okay, actually it was a drunken horse lady, and she was riding in Florida, and she got busted for drunk horseback riding. Her attorney is saying, well, it's not a motor vehicle, and so depending on the state you're in, right, riding a horse while you're drunk could be drunken horseback riding.
But wait a minute, was the horse drunk?
I don't know.
Wasn't the horse controlling the ride?
That's what people have argued. They've argued that, you know, you just get on the horse and it takes you home.
Well, wait a minute. That's been going on for hundreds of years. The drunken horseman.
You've been shot, you know, and like you pass out.
I don't know. You know all those,
like Lassie
all those
takes
westerns.
You home.
All those westerns. You get the arrow in the back. You get the bullet in the shoulder. You're laying over the horse, and the horse is going. Yeah, and it takes you on home.
Yeah, it takes you home.
But why wouldn't they believe that under a drunken scenario?
Well, see what. Anyway, Fong versus the people of California.
Who was Fong, the horse or the drunken?
This is not the same case. This is just bringing it back to California. There was a Supreme Court case, and they found that you can be busted for being drunk riding a horse.
Well, in California.
Yeah, and because you're supposed to be riding in a safe manner, and you're supposed to avoid reckless behavior.
But wait,
I don't know if there's a speed limit on horseback riding or not.
Well, what about galloping? What if you're galloping?
If there's an enhancement or not?
There's an enhancement for galloping?
The enhancement. So, and then the other interesting thing that's come up recently on, as far as DUIs, used to be when you were driving, you had to worry about your car hitting potholes, right?
Right.
Now you have to worry about potheads hitting your car.
Yes, so and that's it's gonna be California.
It's going to be a big deal.
2018, January 1st.
So 2018.
Reefer madness.
So now they have recreational pot, which is kind of interesting because for a while we had medicinal marijuana, right? And people went through all these
medical dispensaries.
Well, but these machinations to kind of squeeze in this, you know, medical marijuana thing.
Oh, the medical marijuana.
And now, but those licenses are kind of, no one really cares about that anymore.
Well, they didn't care about them to begin with. They just wanted to get high.
No, but I mean, but now it's going to be for recreational. So, and there's only so many recreational licenses, okay? Now, the problem is, for the recreational licenses, is that if you have a felony in the last 10 years, you can't be an owner to a pot club.
Oh,
so most lawyers who are getting into this business,
most lawyers,
yeah, no, but I'm just saying.
Wait a minute, are lawyers growing in the back room?
No, but I'm saying
I'll have a couple of contracts and another pound of the Waka Puckle Gah.
Well, maybe, however they take their fee, but it's about $100 grand to set up your. It's about $100 grand to set up a pot club now for this recreational. But the thing is, you want to manufacturing to retail. Well, you know, like in liquor license, you have the tight house rule where manufacturers can't retail. There's an exception for that in California. You can manufacture and retail all the way through.
Well, that's why you get all those home breweries.
And yeah, and that's where you want to be. That's the
as a marijuana distributor.
Yeah, you want to be manufacturer.
You want to be growing to distributing.
Yeah, you want to be a large-scale manufacturer to distributing. That's where the money is. Those are the licenses that's hard to get, and those are the ones that everyone's fighting over. That's what
okay, but wait, isn't it true, though, a lot of established growers, whether they were ever legal or not, now are in the business of manufacturing?
But see, the problem
is... they're selling to licensed wholesalers? Or?
The problem is that a lot of the people who know how to grow pot have felonies because they were doing it illegally on the black market. And
they can't get licensed.
So, they can't have any ownership at all. Even if they try, and even if they try to use a series of front groups. And so here's the problem: is that, and they can't even. And when you go into the pot club or the manufacturing area, you're supposed to sign in. So if you're a felon, they can see how long you're signing in for. So you can't even be a consultant, really, if you have any felonies in the last 10 years.
Wait a minute, but what, have they started a new agency that goes around and monitors who's signing into grow clubs,
Yeah,
grow
there's actually
distributors?
California now has a department of marijuana.
They have a department of marijuana?
Yeah, there's a special department now. Like, I think Nevada has the departments of recreation. And so, but what's interesting about this whole thing to me is that, okay, pot clubs can't put their money in the bank because of the federal law, right? Because it's illegal in federal law. And so, but California is going to start taking tax money for this, right? And cities are taking tax money for these permits. So they're going to take this cash, or I guess maybe they take it in kind, maybe they take it in kilos. But exactly how do they account for that money coming into the government when it can't go into a bank account? So
well, do you know that Jeff Sessions said that he's going to reverse the Obama rule, which said, where Obama said, oh yeah, everyone can go get high, man. And anyway, so what happened is, the federal government's not going to get involved. Don't get high on your own supply. But the problem is that Jeff Sessions, our Attorney General, has now said, you know what? It's still a federal crime. So the question is Jeff Sessions not going to so much come in as gangbusters, but come in under the banking rules and enforce the marijuana legality under the money that's generated from the sales of the marijuana?
Well, that's one way they could go, and so that'd be interesting to defend.
Because then he could
under states' rights.
Yeah.
But another thing that's looking at, like small retailers like corner liquor stores could become distributors for marijuana because they already have a background of distributing and staying within the law and not having...
Allegedly.
Yeah, well, and not causing problems in the neighborhood. So when you have... So there's a select amount of people who did medicinal marijuana, and they did that legally. So they've got a good shot.
Well, they're first in line because they've already been operating and selling marijuana. But I do know that they changed the configuration of what kind of containers marijuana can be in.
Yeah, they're bigger now.
No, not just the bigger, but before you could see everything you wanted to buy.
Right.
But now all the packages have to be. They're not transparent. They're translucent. You can't see what you're actually buying, and this raises a lot of questions about how they're going to do quality control and how
you mean people could be buying bunk.
You know, that could be buying bunk.
This is not doing anything.
This is Kansas. Hey, Dorothy, I didn't know I'm in Kansas anymore.
So
but no, that's a problem.
People could be getting emphysema, not getting high.
That's another thing.
That's a problem.
I mean, what are they spending their money on?
So that's okay. So getting back to the pot DUI, I know in Colorado they tried to come up with a nanogram. How would you? Now the problem.
Well, it's still through a breathalyzer.
Yeah, but the problem with measuring, THC in your blood, and there's actually two types of THC. There's the sativa, right, which is kind of the stuff that gets you high. And I guess there's the indica, which is they make rope out of, right?
Yeah, well, no, there's hemp that has no tetrahydrocannabinol.
Yeah, but
that's hemp. That's the crap you buy from Kansas.
I think that's the indica.
Yeah, well, the thing about, there's a bigger problem here. And that problem is that every individual is different on how they metabolize marijuana.
Now, the question is, if you're smoking pot on a horse, do you get a DUI
on a horse?
A horse.
Or is that a horse of another color?
Or a horse, of
course.
Okay, and then we've got boats and sailboats and motorboats definitely, and then rowboats and sailboats is a question about whether you get a DUI on that. But yeah, I think that there's going to be a lot of DUIs for marijuana.
Okay, let me give an anecdote because when it passed, I was at a store and two Mountain View policemen came in. And we actually had about a 15, 20-minute discussion about marijuana and the driving. And first thing they said, well,
or horseback riding.
Yeah, or horseback riding. It's the same thing in California.
Right.
And what they said was very clearly, we've been arresting people for marijuana intoxication while driving for years, because in the Bay Area, it's kind of the hometown or the epicenter of the use of marijuana in whatever.
How about marijuana for surfing?
Well, you can.
That could end the whole story.
My problem is, what if you're on a board and you're out there in the waves and you got all the crowd on the beach and you're going, here I come, and the guy goes, stop, he is surfing under the influence of marijuana.
Yeah, that could be a problem.
But anyway, before we get to surfing, I'm going to have to tell you, we got to move on to our second issue tonight. What's that?
So this is fractional voting. And so
fractional voting?
So here's the thing. Let's say that I owe you $1, right?
Is that like fracking?
No, yeah, it's kind of like fracking. Okay, let's say I owe you $1.
Okay, you owe me $1.
Let's see if I got any dollars. Okay, so I owe you $1, right?
I got $1.
So $1. Now let's say I owe you $1 and a penny.
And a penny.
So I owe you $1 penny. So then I got to give you a penny. I don't have a penny right here, but let's say I give you a penny.
Does a penny have any value?
Okay, now what if I owed you $1.04 cents, like 4/10 of a penny?
Well, we don't have centavos.
Okay, so that would be whatever, 40 basis points, basically.
Yeah, 40 basis points.
40 basis points. But if I'm a bank, I just give you the $1. I keep that 40 basis points.
You keep the float.
Okay, I keep the float. Now, if it's 0.6, 60 basis point, I owe you the penny.
You should owe the penny.
But what happens if it's half a penny, 50 basis points?
Well, then that's a split between the bank and the individual, isn't it?
What happens there, there's a special program that runs.
But who gets that?
Well, it runs it through a random number generator, and sometimes once I get it to one, sometimes it's the other. That's how they do it. Now, anyway, there's a program in every financial program that decides what to do with that half a penny, right?
Right.
Okay, and that's the fractional voting, or that's the fractional.
Wait a minute, but now we're applying this to voting.
Well, one thing at a time. The guy who wrote this program, he made that thing, and so what you do is in your financial program, you have a little thing where you can say half the time you give it to the bank, half the time you give it to the customer time, all the time it goes to a random number generator, or whatever you want to do. You can tell what. So there's a little thing inside every financial problem waiting for instructions. Right?
But can't you give a blanket instruction for that?
There's a bug inside all these programs waiting for instructions. So of course the guy who wrote the software took advantage of that. He got convicted because of course he used it to hack in and steal money.
Well, wait a minute, didn't a guy like that do that on the Powerball?
Yeah. So anyway, but the point is there's a bug, and so the GEM computer system and all the systems that count voting have that bug in it. So if you get 30 seconds or 50 seconds or 60 seconds alone in the polling place, you can throw in your flash drive, and you can tell that GEM's little bug to do whatever you want to do.
Wait a minute.
And what you can do is you can preset like how much you want your guy to win by and the other guy to lose by. So let's say you want to win by 1.5%. Every time the other guy comes within, you go down to 1.4%, that'll delete some of his votes.
Oh my God.
And so that's the GEMS bug, and that's what happened in Alabama. So that's
wait a minute, with the Roy Moore vote?
Yeah, that was the Roy Moore vote. So
wait a minute, that's why he wanted a recount.
And so, yeah, of course. And so if you look at the statistical scattering, especially in Jefferson County, where he should have got his biggest vote, and you look at the correlations of every other county, they're all like in this thing, and you look at Jefferson County, it's scattered. And so I took master's statistics. The chances of those data points laying down like that are more than 10 million to 1. I mean, that's for sure rigged.
So now what you're thinking is that the GEM, GEM fractional voting created the spread against Roy Moore.
Well, yeah, but basically it deleted a bunch of his votes where you would expect him to do. In other words, there was twice as many Democratic voters as normally would be there, and half as many Republicans in that section.
Wait a minute, but Alabama's almost all Republican.
But this was just in his, but
in Jefferson County where he should have won.
Well, that's where he had his biggest lead. He had like a quarter of votes than they expect to see, and also they came in a very weird pattern. So anyway, and also people say they've got videos of them disappearing. So I mean, I saw some of those, whether those are true or not. But then what's most damning about it is then the Republican Secretary of State, when they said, well, we want to see the voting images for the computer voting images, right? And usually you keep those for 22 months. They destroyed those. Well, first of all, the Secretary of State is like, oh, we don't have those. Those never got taken. And then they said, well, we're filing and we're filing a temporary restraining order, so you can't destroy them. And then they said, well, it turns out we got them, but we're going to destroy them. And then the Supreme Court said, okay, you can destroy them. They found a judge who would destroy them. So they got rid of all the evidence, which were the voting images. So there's two.
Wait a minute. What really happened in that vote?
We don't know. But anyway, they all got. So I would say that's consciousness of guilt.
But wait a minute. I have a question. Is this possible that something like this went on during the presidential election?
Well, we don't really know. But I would say anytime you get a computer who's counting the votes, what Stalin said about stuff like this, he said, it doesn't really matter who you vote for.
You're talking about Joseph Stalin.
Joe. Yeah, Joe.
Big Joe.
Big Joe.
Big Joe.
Big Joe said, it doesn't really
actually a little Joe.
He said, it doesn't matter who you vote for. What really matters is who counts the votes.
Who counts the votes?
And so I would say anytime if you're going to a polling place and they give you a computer to work on, I'd say, no, I want a paper ballot.
Yeah.
And we should keep the paper ballots for 22 months so they can be recounted. Because this
like
thing,
the hanging Chad.
Because this, well, that would be better than this, because these images got deleted within 48 hours.
That is very odd.
And so then, okay, so that was one thing that happened with Roy Moore. Then we had kind of just the other stuff. It's like the Dems spent about $30 million on the election, and the Republicans spent $20 million against Roy. Because the Republicans didn't like, because Mitch McConnell hates him, right?
Yeah, right.
Because Mitch.
Actually, Mitch wanted the other guy who was named the temporary guy to replace Jeff Sessions.
Mitch wanted Doug. Mitch has like all these bills, including concealed carry, arrested property. He's got this pile of bills on his desk, right? And he's been paid off. And like all they had to do is change the rule and say, okay, no more filibuster. All those would be passed tomorrow, right?
Yep.
No, we need 60 votes. We say, no, you don't. So Mitch is on the other side. Okay, so anyway, so the Republicans spent.
Who has something on Mitch?
Along probably a list.
Wait a minute.
Probably Hillary.
Could it be the same gang?
Same gang. Okay, and then basically the media spent about $200 million in advertising against him because he said, Roy said that Hollywood was subverting kids with smut.
Funny enough.
Which is,
which is true.
Which is prima facie.
Pretty much true.
Prima facie. And so basically it was
I mean, he was telling the truth.
Yeah, it was like, so it's $250 million
How rare.
were spent against Roy. $250 million worth of advertising against him. And he spent $1.6 million, and he still won. So they had to rig it with this fractional vote.
With his fractional vote.
Right, and then they have this other thing where they're accusing him of rape and child molesting, all that stuff. So it's kind of interesting. Roy Moore got accused of rape, and Al Franklin got accused of rape. And if you looked at the news, you would think like the senators, it's just like an epidemic of rape. Like the senators, all they do is rape people all day long, right? And so what's interesting about this, 25 to 35,000 white women per year get raped by black men, okay? About 18 to 24 black women get raped by white men a year. But there's basically a white woman every 15 minutes getting raped by a black guy. And these aren't at colleges. This isn't date rape. This isn't in the Senate. These are in like parking lots on their way home from the subway, right? People that they don't know, they mug them, they rape them. No one talks about that because it's not cute. But what's happening is that the Democrats are paying $700,000 for each false claim of rape, right, against Republicans. And so there's Trump giving people jobs. Right
oh,
there.
The full employment.
700,000.
Yes.
No, but if you
is that why the employment's down to 4% right now?
And if you were going to have,
how can you be wrong with that?
Now, I don't think all these senators are doing the rapes, because if the senators were doing $35,000 rapes per year, each senator would have to be raping a girl a day.
Oh, well, that's a high output.
And I don't know if they're doing that.
Those guys don't have enough energy to be doing that all the time. There's no way.
And so basically, if you take that 35,000 white women who are raped every year, and you did like the Democrats, we had to pay $700,000 for every allegation. That'd be $24 billion. So Trump's saving the Republicans $24 billion a year just on rape charges alone.
Well, let's hold those numbers right there. And Mark, and I'm wondering, we'll go back to those numbers because those are going to come out more. But what's our last subject for tonight?
Okay, then we've got Harvard.
Harvard.
And Harvard's in a little scuffle with the Asians.
Well, the Asians.
And if you're an Asian.
And why so?
Well, if you're an Asian and you get like a 1,600 or nearly a 1,600.
Perfect.
Pretty close to a 1,600 on your SAT. There's like different Marxists and stuff who get 1,000 on their SAT, and they get to take your spot, okay? And also they kind of found that there's a lot of people who like get 1,000 on their SAT, and they have like an IQ of maybe 85. And there's like Asians.
Are you trying to tell me they don't take the best and the brightest?
And then you got Asians who maybe have an IQ of 160 and get a 1,600, and they don't get taken. And so the Asians are going like, what up, And so, so Harvard's going, well, this is, the same diversity of what's in the population, but it's not. Because you have like 2% of the population, which are Marxists, and they are about 70% of the spots. And,
all you have to do is say, when you ask for religion on a Harvard application, you have to say Alinsky and Marxism. And pretty much that's, hey, what is it, man? Where are you at? Hey.
No, but it's like, I just threw a Coke can full of cement at a cop.
And by the way, I went to Buffalo Bob. I went to Buffalo Bob High School down there, and that's all we got.
And so anyway, the Asians are suing on this, and basically,
don't tell me more. Man.
And Harvard is deleting stuff and shredding stuff.
Deleting and shredding.
As quick as they can.
Wait a minute, was that where the president learned all that? For 8 years of deleting and shredding?
And so anyway, Now the DOJ is after Harvard for Title VI violence.
The DOJ?
Yeah, Department of Justice is saying, look, we want to see these records. We want to see these scores.
And they're going to say, what records?
They're saying, oh, wait, I don't
know. What stinking records?
So that's the Title VI of the 1964 Civil Rights Act. It's like, what Harvard is saying is like SAT scores aren't relevant.
Well, no, they've changed. Yeah, that is correct.
That's what
as soon as they start getting caught bringing in all the the trendy culture of the day,
right.
As soon as they get caught doing that, then it's like, oh, SAT doesn't matter. But as soon as they have to go back to reality, they go, oh no, it's very important that you have a good SAT.
I mean, also the meritocracy.
Meritocracy.
That's considered racist.
Oh
so
my God.
That's racist.
Whoa.
And that's also you're forbidden.
Wait a minute, is that part of being white?
And then, well, yeah. And then if you can't say mental retard, which someone with an 85 or lower, right?
Right.
IQ is considered by the medical dictionary to be a mental retard. But you're not allowed to say that anymore because those are most of your Harvard graduates.
Or the professors.
Yeah, no, it's the graduates. And so what happens? You have a bunch of morons graduating from Harvard, and Harvard is basically how you become royalty on the planet. There's about 20,000 people who run this planet. And they all pretty much went to Harvard, right? So if you go to Harvard, you're going to be a senator, you're going to be a CEO, you're going to run the Fed, you're going to run the banking system. There's no way really to get in that royalty without going through Harvard. Now you think, well,
should I go back to school, Mark?
Why would they want a bunch of morons with an IQ of like 65 or 70 who got 1,000 on the SAT to run the world?
Well, I'll tell you why. Because there's a group above them that are telling the puppets what to do.
And besides, they'd never be able to get a job at a 7-Eleven otherwise.
That's right.
So they got to do what they're told.
But do you understand the immigration people are going to 7-Elevens now?
Yeah, they are. So they are. But the thing about this is I think the only fair thing to do is to, like, Harvard should publish everybody's IQ and everybody's SAT score that gets into Harvard. And if they say, okay, well, this guy had more socially groovy experience.
But what about legacy families and alumni?
Well, that's fine.
Wait a minute, all that stuff is going on too,
no,
so you can't go wrong with that.
That's fine. I'm just saying, let Harvard explain why someone with a 65 IQ and somebody who got 1,000 on the SAT didn't get in when someone with a 1550 and an IQ of 150 didn't get in. That's okay. We'll just publish it and let the people who didn't get in say, well, Schmo, how come Schmo got my spot and I didn't? And let Harvard explain it. I think that'd be the fair way to do it. Because Harvard gets welfare from the federal government. Harvard doesn't stand alone on what people give it for donations.
Well, they have a huge alumni source.
Yeah, but they still get federal money.
They have a huge alumni source.
I know, but they get federal.
They have billions of dollars in their portfolio
but I'm
from
just saying
alumni donations.
They get federal money, and they cannot, under the Dodd-Frank, keep getting this money. And I don't, like, the Title VI is a little bit of a goofy law anyway. But I would say under the 14th Amendment, if you believe in the 14th Amendment, some people argue that was done under arrest by the southern states, so that shouldn't count either. But let's say if you believe in the Equal Protection Clause, this is definitely a violation of the Equal Protection Clause because they're getting welfare. If you're getting welfare, now the constitutionality of a private citizen running a business having to do equal protection, I don't really see how that works out constitutionally. But there's no doubt if the government's giving you welfare, like handing out food stamps or handing out diplomas or something like that, they got to do it equally.
Okay, wait a minute. Okay, let's go. When you're talking about that, what you're saying is because now you're effectively an agent of the government,
right.
You still have to go by the equal protection you're talking about there is because you're an agent of the government because you're getting money from the government in the form of some kind of government grants, scholarships,
basically,
loans,
it's
whatever.
welfare in that it's not like if the government gives you $10 million and says build a bridge and you build a bridge, that's one thing. But the government's giving Harvard this money, and Harvard's giving people these scholarships. And
they're giving free rides.
They're not giving anything back. That's welfare. Okay, yeah. You're getting free stuff.
That is a welfare.
You're getting free stuff from the government. That's called welfare.
Are those the people at 85 IQ and 1,000 at the SATs?
Well, I would say the few people, like probably the 10 or 15%, who should be 90%, who are high IQs and do well in the SATs, they're getting welfare too, right? Anybody go to Harvard, I mean, if you get a Harvard degree, you're royalty. You're worth billions. I mean, come on. Give me a break.
Well, you're a piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, you're part of the machine. You're one of the rulers of the planet.
And you can teach constitutional law, too,
right.
and be an adjunct professor, and then become president.
No, you have to go to Columbia.
No, that's right. You have to go to Columbia for
Harvard.
And then you got to go to Hawaii and go back. Frank Marshall Davis.
So I'm saying it's definitely welfare. So that's the thing. I think they should publish the IQs of the people at Harvard who get in, publish their SAT scores, and if
But see, I thought they did all that.
I haven't seen that.
Well, here's the thing. It seems like it's logical for any college to show the type of people they're admitting to their college, and they should be showing the schools they went to, the scoring, the grading. But here's what they can't do. They can't show you what happens when you're legally blonde.
That's right, yeah.
And if you want to go to Harvard Law School, you better have a great poolside photo shoot. But anyway, beyond all that, I'm sorry about that. But here's the thing.
What's relevant?
Yeah, I'll tell you what's relevant. It's all the subjective. When they're looking at people's portfolios, I know how they're doing this because I know somebody that's an admission at a college. How they do this, there's all the numbers, correct?
Right.
They look at the numbers, but then they look at the life events of each of the individuals. And those life events may include that, by the way, you know the president of admissions. You may know that. Or you just don't have anything. Maybe if you're a straight 1,600, 160 IQ, whatever, but you've done absolutely nothing, those people don't get first shot. The people that have first shot are oftentimes people that have fair to moderate scores or a little above average, but have done a lot. But then the problem is that is so subjective. Now it comes down to when you throw in some other criteria like what cultural background is he? Where was he raised? What's his financial income? When you look at all those factors, that's where the subjective decision practice.
No. That's. I mean, it's race. Okay. If you're white or Asian, you got to have a 1,600. If you're a Mexican or woman, you can have a 1,400. If you're black, you can have 1,000. So it's like 600 points between being black and Asian, right? And then there's the in-betweens.
It's
just race.
Where does sports fall into this?
Sports, I don't know how much they care about, but I mean, just the numbers that they're suing about is based on race. They're Asian, and they're saying, I got a 1,600. I got the exact same family background.
Yeah, but wait a minute. Is there data to support that?
No, well, that's what they're arguing. They say, I got the exact same push-ups I did. I came from the family, the same background. I got a 1,600, and this guy got 1,000.
Well, before we go any further with this, Mark, I got to tell you, it's a really exciting subject, but I got to tell you something.
See how it goes.
It's a real pleasure tonight. And I got to tell you something. Those are very exciting subjects. And I think what we have to do is we have to keep up because I'd like to see how that lawsuit proceeds at Harvard.
Well, it'll be interesting. Harvard was supposed to cough up the data December 1st of this year.
You know they're not.
And they lost all the data.
Yeah,
I think it was a fire or something like that.
Yeah, it's not like, what about the FBI? Oh, what data? Who did that? Nobody paid attention. FISA warrants? What FISA warrants? We don't even know what's going on.
That's my half a penny.
Hey, wait a minute. Is this the voting of the future?
Yeah, the voting of the future. Doesn't matter who you vote.
Fractional voting.
Matters who
Fractional voting.
Matters who counts the vote.
Who counts? Yeah, it doesn't matter
who you vote for.
Boy, it's just who counts the vote. You know, Joe came up with a good one.
That's pretty
Big
good.
Joe.
I like Joe. Yeah, I like the way he goes.
You know, he's really squared away.
You know what he's going
Especially when he told all the